What you're about to hear is the most traumatic experience of my life. It was New Year's Eve, and me and my girlfriend, let's call her Jane, were getting ready to see some fireworks. Jane and I knew a great spot deep in the woods where we could see the fireworks. We left at about 9:30 because the fireworks show was starting at 10. We made sure to pack some food, water, flashlights, and even a compass in case we got lost. We parked our car on the side of the road and made our way to the spot. I would say it was about a 15-minute walk or so until we reached the spot, which was a huge clearing surrounded by woods on all sides. Jane and I sat down and started watching the fireworks show. About 15 minutes into the show, Jane looked at the woods and said, "Did you see that?" I was confused and looked in the direction of the woods, but I saw nothing. I told her it was probably just a deer, and we continued watching the fireworks show. 5 minutes passed by, and I had completely forgotten about the incident until Jane told me to shush. I was confused and asked why. She then asked me, "Do you hear that?" I listened closely and could hear leaves crunching and twigs snapping. I looked in the direction of the sound and could somewhat make out the figure of a man. At first, I didn't believe it. But then a bright firework lit up the night sky along with the woods, and I could now clearly see a man, about 6'3", walking towards us. Now I'm 6'5" and believed I could easily take on this man if he wants trouble. But that all changed when another firework revealed a large knife in his hand. I told Jane to run, and we both darted back into the woods to the direction of our car, all the while this man was running about 20 feet behind us. After about 2 or 3 minutes of running, we managed to lose the guy, and we arrived at my car. When we did, I made a horrifying discovery. All 4 of my tires had been slashed. We didn't know what to do. My car wouldn't be able to drive, and there was a maniac trying to kill us, and all the while, Jane was going crazy. I tried calling 911, but just my luck. I had no service way out there in the woods. Luckily, we saw a truck coming down the road, and Jane quickly flagged the driver down. The driver parked behind us, and a large dude stepped out of the truck. We quickly explained to him what was going on, and he got back into his truck and pulled out a gun, along with a satellite phone. We used the satellite phone and called the police. They said they would be there in about 5 to 7 minutes. While we were waiting, Jane investigated the woods and then screamed. I quickly looked over to the direction she was looking, and I saw the man walking towards us. Jane yelled that it was him, and the driver of the truck then took one ground look at him and fired a warning shot. The gunshot sent the man running back into the woods. After 3 minutes of waiting in fear, the cops arrived. They called in a team to check the woods, along with a AAA truck to fix my car. The rest of the night was me and Jane at the police station. We tried to give the best description of the man that we could, but because it was so dark, I could barely make out his face. I don't know what would have happened if Jane hadn't spotted the man, but we've never been back to that spot since. This story happened last year on New Year's Eve. A friend group of the 4 of us got together at my friend Jennifer's apartment for New Year's Eve. It was a fun night, and we played games and watched a movie. We had a New Year's celebration, and at about 2 in the morning, most of us called it a night. We were all young women and lived in a pretty large city and had walked to her apartment. The other girls left before me because I stayed back to help Jennifer with something. When I finally left, it was about 2:15 in the morning. It was roughly a 10-minute walk to get back to my apartment, which was a few blocks away. I walked down the sidewalk outside of Jennifer's place and saw there was a decent amount of people outside for this hour, probably because of it being New Year's. Then I had to pass by a park to get to my apartment, which was a little bit less in the city. The park was much quieter. It took up several blocks in itself and was sort of creepy to walk by so late at night, but I had done it a couple of times in the past. I did, however, start to hear movement coming from the bushes to my right in the park, not too long after I started walking by. The park was more of hiking trails and woods than really a park, and the bushes and trees were pretty dense. I thought it was a squirrel at first, but I quickly realized that it was far too big to be one. As I walked along the sidewalk, it seemed to move right along with me. I looked into the bushes, but I really couldn't see too much with how dense the bushes were, and the only light being from a dim street light. I decided to just keep walking, and I reached into my purse just to be prepared for the worst. The noise started to die down, and just when I was starting to feel relieved, I came upon the darkest part of the park, where there was no street light, and I heard the noise of bushes getting extremely loud. Then I saw a man pop out of the bushes onto the sidewalk right in front of me. All I could make out was that he was slightly taller than me and had a hood on. He lunged at me almost immediately, and that's when I took my hand out of my purse and sprayed the man with my pepper spray. At first I was afraid it wasn't working because he got a tight grasp on both of my arms and he didn't let go, but as I struggled and continued to spray, we both ended up falling to the ground. And after being on the ground, he got up and ran back into the woods. I got up and sprinted to my apartment. I kept looking around to make sure I wasn't being followed, and when I got back and felt safe, I called the police. As they were on the way, I called my friends who had been at the party with me. When I told them the story, they told me that they too had heard the noise of something in the bushes beside them. However, a man never came out and lunged at them, probably because there were 3 of them walking together. The police arrived and took down information and then searched the park. But as far as I know, the man was never found. This story happened to me on New Year's Eve 3 years ago. It was my senior year of high school, and my friend Jake was having a New Year's party at his house. His parents happened to be away for a few days at a wedding, so it was the typical perfect situation for a party. Jake and I were pretty close friends, and we went way back, so of course I was one of the first people that he invited. At first I was under the impression that it was just going to be about 6 or 7 of us hanging out, and that's exactly how it started for the first 15 minutes or so. But then Jake announced that some more people were coming over. Over the next hour or so, there was a steady stream of kids coming into the house. It quickly seemed to turn into a high school house party. Before I knew it, the house was packed with mainly kids from our high school, as well as some kids that I had never seen before. Despite it being New Year's Eve, I still had a curfew at my parents' house, so once 11 p.m. hit, I decided to find Jake and tell him that I was leaving to go home. The party was mostly in the living room, as well as the entire front part of the house. He had closed off the door to his kitchen, indicating that he didn't want people going in there. I had seen Jake go in and out of the kitchen, and I thought he was in there, so I opened the door and entered it. It was completely empty, except for the corner next to the fridge. But it wasn't Jake there. There was a freakishly tall man standing there with his back turned to me. It really took me by surprise, as it was definitely not a high school kid and wasn't Jake's dad either. The man had to be almost 7 feet tall, was probably in his late 20s, and had a really strange overall look to him. I stood there staring for a good 3 or 4 seconds. As soon as he started to casually turn and look at me, I closed the door back up and walked back down the hall to where a good 30 kids were. I was able to locate Jake in the crowd and asked him who the tall man in his kitchen was. It took a minute or so to get it across to Jake. He was having a good time and didn't seem to care at first, but I told him again, and he seemed confused, so I told him to come with me. I explained to him as we went to the kitchen, and he seemed to be slightly concerned, but when we got to the kitchen and opened the door, we didn't see anything at all. Jake went into the kitchen and looked around, as well as calling out for anybody that was in there to come out, but nobody was in there at all. We figured the tall man must have left, because there was no way to leave the house through the kitchen unless the man were to climb out the window, and none of the windows seemed to be messed with. We went back out to where the party was going on, and we asked several kids if they had seen a tall man at all, to which they all said no. Jake then ended his party shortly after that, and people all started to leave. Jake was a little concerned that the man still might be in his house somewhere, so I stayed back after everybody left to help search the house, along with our friends Jordan and Mike. We didn't find anybody still, and I went home while Jordan and Mike stayed at Jake's house with him for the night. The next morning when I woke up, I had several missed calls from Jake. I called him back, and the 3 of my friends told me how they had heard the front door shut at around 3 in the morning, and when they all went down, they didn't see anybody in the house but saw a very tall man walking down the street far away.